today is a special video for, I hope I get the name right, Mrs. Willison's 6th grade class. I hope I said the name right. If I'm wrong, please forgive me. So this video is going to be made to the public. This video especially is for Mrs. Willison's class. She had contacted me in regards to doing a Skype interview with the children in the class. And I work a full-time job, so I was unable to do that, but I decided to do a video. So the class put together tons of questions for me. And I know the class right now is listening, so hey kids, how are you? And I hope this is going to be fun. There's tons of questions, and I can't wait to answer them. And this is going to be great. Okay, and I'd like to say thank you for inviting me into your class, and sorry again that I couldn't be on Skype live. And alright, so let's get to the questions. Alright, so I'm going to be looking down a little bit at this. Alright, so some questions in regards to My Name is Rapunzel. Did you always love fairy tales? Well, yeah. I think, as a young girl, you always wanted to be that princess and live in a fairy tale castle, and your heroine comes to rescue you, like a knight in shining armor on a horse. And I think, as boys, they probably want to be that hero. And I always lived in that little fantasy dreamland. I love Disney and the princesses, and yeah, so I guess I did like fairy tales. And, to this day I still do. And, yeah, so I like to live in a dream world. Okay, next question. How did you get the idea to have Rapunzel tell her own story? Now, that's interesting. I wrote The Magic of Finkleton and Return to Finkleton, and as soon as I stopped Return to Finkleton, as soon as it was done, it was edited, it was out there, people were reading it, I needed to start looking for book covers, getting ideas for saving Finkleton, because in the back of Return to Finkleton is the first chapter of the third book. And as I was looking through images, as I was looking up fairy tales, I was looking up anything, and just to give me an idea. And I ran across this image of this beautiful woman, and you can see her on the front of My Name is Rapunzel, and it was gorgeous. So, I kind of saved that thought away, it's gorgeous, and I continued to look for like 3 or 4 more hours, and I put it to rest and went to bed that night, and 4 o'clock in the morning I woke up, and I'm like, this image has invaded my mind, and I couldn't shake it. So I got to thinking, well, why couldn't I write a book about Rapunzel, her story, her version? And so that's where that started to invade my mind even more. So what's really funny is I was headstrong on finishing the Finkleton series. Saving Finkleton has got to be finished. But Rapunzel's story wouldn't let go, if that makes any sense. I had to stop what I was doing with the Finkleton, the third book, and write Rapunzel's story from her point of view, and I really enjoyed it. And so it's for young adult readers, and I really did enjoy writing that book. So, okay, so I might have went over on the answer a little bit on that question. Okay, next question. Did you write the story, then make chapters, or did you write each chapter on its own? Actually, how I write is scenes come to my mind, and I take notes. And if I have the time, or I don't know how I'm going to do this, I'll try to put it up here somewhere. I made a storyboard of sorts. I had tons of notes scattered everywhere, and I needed to put these in order, these scenes and everything for her life, and so, of the story. And so I used a storyboard, and I used stick notes. I used colorful stick notes, and I started putting the scenes together is how I did things. And then when it was time for me to write, I actually transferred those, sorry, phone. I transferred those stick notes onto little 4x6 cards. And from that, I wrote. I could sit with my laptop anywhere in my home, and and that's just, I wrote, you know, where I was supposed to, from those cards, if that makes any sense, in order. At first they weren't in order. They were everywhere, and then I just kind of put them together, and so each scene in the book would go from there. Okay, so I hope I answered that one correctly. Next question. There is a lot of dialogue. Is that reflective of your style, conversational or outgoing? I talk a lot. Like dialogue. I think things need to be said. And to be funny, when I was a little girl, my dad used to call me Motor Mouth. That was my nickname. So, I'm an outgoing person, and I like my characters to be somewhat outgoing. If I can't have one character be outgoing, at least somebody else is. They're kind of balancing things out. But I do like dialogue, and I do try to bring it down a notch, because I could go on forever, in my books. But I know that there are rules, and a lot of people don't like a ton of dialogue. So that's where that's coming from. As of my style, I think it actually reflects on me as a person, and I like to communicate. However, when I stop talking and I start listening, I learn a lot more. Just listening, and as I've gotten older, I've learned that. So, yeah, I like to talk. Okay, next question. So we are on the Magic of Finkleton and the Return to Finkleton questions. Are you naturally interested in magic? Well, magic, let's see, in a good way. Magic like you waking up Christmas morning and running to the Christmas tree and see tons of presents there. That to me is magical. That's just wonderful. And, I know you're too young for this, but your first kiss it's magical. That's what I see is, it's just a feeling. It's just a wonderful feeling. Not like, Harry Potter and like the wand and stuff. Now that's awesome too. But that's how I see magic in a way. It's just the wonderful, the good things of everything. Although, Finkleton, controlling the weather is pretty awesome. Yes, that's magical too. I like living in that little, my mind living in that little fantasy world when I write, especially Finkleton. It's a wonderful place. To me, I see so many things. I see more than actually what I can put into the book, and it's hard to describe. Okay, sorry, I ramble. Next question. Have you imagined yourself living in Finkleton? Is it like a town you know? Yes, actually. I'd been to Bath, England, and I know the spelling is Bath, but it's pronounced Bath. And when I had gone over to London, I had met two American travelers, and they told me about Bath. This is where Stonehenge is as well, and the Roman baths. And so I went there, and I thought it was amazing. Finkleton actually, in my mind, kind of it portrays some of the streets that I had walked down in this little town. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Jane Austen lived there for 3 years and wrote. And I just love this little town, and I liked it more than London, actually. Just me, just because I love history. And I could see how things were or would have been, back in the day when there was no power and stuff like that. It's just, everything is made of stone and block, and I thought it was amazing. That's why in Finkleton we start off the first book. The Finkle family does live in Bath, and they move from there, but still Finkleton as a whole, I'm still pulling it from Bath, if that makes that town, because I think it hasn't changed in years, and I just thought it was amazing. You can probably Google it and find out more, and see some of the, I did walk down some of the cobblestone, streets or roads, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. So that's where Finkleton really came from, if that makes any sense. In my imagination, anyway. So yes, it is like a town I know, and it's in England, to be more precise. Who is your favorite character, and do you identify with them? I think that's hard. It's a great question. It's really hard because I love all my characters. Um, the three children in the Finkelton books, Jack, Robert, and Lizzie, I want to say sort of take after my own children, but some of their quirks and stuff are after me. Like, for instance, Robert, he likes maths, and he likes taking things apart and disassembling them and figuring things out. Well, one of my sons is like that. He likes to figure things out and disassemble things. And Jack, he likes to be organized and keep a clean room, and he is more of the caretaker and watches over the other children. Well, that is like my oldest son, when they were growing up. Now, Lizzie takes more after me, by way of books and stuff like that. And I do have a daughter, but I think the bickering of the three children, or especially between Robert and Lizzie, that does come from my three children, because they would just bicker. And my daughter would get on my son's nerves, and they would just kind of petty argue and just pick at each other, and one liked to be the boss over the other. And that's where a lot of that comes from. And as a parent, sometimes they're bickering, I'd have to tell them to stop, but I thought it was funny. Looking back now, my children are grown. I just thought it was kind of cute because it was over the silliest little things, and that's where a lot of the story comes from. Is, what I've lived through, what I've seen and experienced my children. Let's see. Next question. Was there a specific scene that made you smile or even laugh when you were writing it? Does it still have the same effect? Yes, actually, several scenes. Return to Finkelton, I think, when, was it Lizzie? Who was scrubbing the floor? Lizzie and Robert? When I think Robert threw the scrub brush in the bucket of water, and yeah, I just thought it was funny. There's so many scenes that I did thought was funny. I still do. There's one in particular scene. Sorry, again, my phone. There's one in particular scene. After reading Return to Finkelton, when you read the sneak peek, the first chapter in Saving Finkelton, directly after reading Return to Finkelton, if I read that scene, I cry. When I was writing Return to Finkelton, in the middle of it, I was driving down the road, and I thought of this scene, which is that sneak peek. And I just, like, no, I can't write that. That's just not possible. And then, it went on for a few days because I had to do long distance driving for my job at that time. And the next day I was like, why can't I do this? This is Finkelton. This is a magical place. I can do this. And so I stopped writing Return to Finkelton, and I had to write this scene. I actually have the ending of Saving Finkelton already written as well. And that scene itself, when I was sitting at the dinner table, I was explaining it to my husband, and I started crying. It's not a sad scene. How do I explain it? The scene is like, oh my gosh. And even though I'm the writer, when I read that, or when I try to explain that scene, like certain things, I bawl like a baby. It was such a joyous moment. All of a sudden, OMG, what has happened? And that scene, it always gets me to cry, but not sad tears. So, okay. All right, we'll move on. All right, so let's see here. When you wrote the first book, did you already have an idea for it being 2 books? Actually, no. Not until the end, when I was writing the last few chapters. I thought, well, I've left it open if I wanted to write another book, and I wouldn't write it until I seen how the first book took off. And then I decided, there's a lot of people who loved it, so I went ahead and I decided to go ahead and write Return to Finkleton. And again, the way I wrote it, you can read it without reading the first book, but it's still all the same series. And so yeah, that's I didn't know until towards the end, and I didn't decide until after to go ahead and write the second book. And like I was explaining before, I didn't know there was going to be a third book until I was halfway through the second book. So I don't know what's going to happen when I start writing the third book as well. Okay, so let's see here. Will there be more stories in this series? Yes, Saving Finkleton will be the third book in the series. And, again, I don't know if there's going to be a fourth or a fifth, or if there's going to be a spin-off. There's been several ideas that have been emailed to me or spoken to me, certain things I could do. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. When I get back to writing Saving Finkleton, I will reread the first and the second book to immerse myself back into that world, because it is a different world, completely different, and I love living in Finkleton in my mind. It's just a wonderful place. Okay, so 90 Miles to Freedom questions. This is my adult contemporary novel. Is this story inspired by any real life events? Actually, no. It's not. The people in there do reflect people that I know. How's that? My husband states that George stole his identity. And people say that I'm Betty. So I guess I write from what I know, and there are a lot of things in that book, that even the little stories that are told, that are real life stories in our family. But the actual story itself is not a true story. It's not real. It's definitely fiction. I made it all up. Did I ever live in Florida? No. We visit there every year. We were married on the beach in Florida, my husband and I, and we go back every year, and we love it there. We love the beach and the water. And if you could change one thing in this story, what would you change? Actually, I don't think there's anything that I would change. I think I would, actually, I do plan on rewriting it and actually going into more detail. And yeah, I think that's the only thing I want to change, just more detail. And I think I might actually change it from narrative perspective to first person. I think that's the only change I will do, and that wouldn't be too hard. Also, real quick on 90 Miles to Freedom, we were on vacation when the idea came to me. I actually woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It was dark. Everybody was asleep, and I'm on vacation. And I woke up from a dream. It wasn't a horrible dream, but it wasn't a very nice dream. Part of it, obviously, in the first chapter, first three chapters, that was my dream, and bits and pieces what I could remember. I actually woke up and scrounged around in the dark and got a business card and a pen, and I wrote on the back. I just scribbled it, and it was dark. I couldn't see what I was writing, and I was like hoping that I could make some sense out of it the next day. And sure enough, I could make out, and that story just sort of stayed with me for like 3 more months, and I decided to write more about it. When I was a little girl and I had bad dreams, what I would do was I would write my bad dreams down in a journal, and I would close the book, and my mentality at that age was bad dream gone. So I hadn't had a bad dream in years. So that's what I had done, and it actually turned into a book. So I never imagined that would, but I had to do something with that dream. I had to write it down in more detail, and so that's how 90 Miles to Freedom came to be. Alright, general reading and writing questions. I know we're about 20 minutes in, and I do apologize. I'm trying to talk as fast as I can. There's a lot of questions, but they're great. Okay, how do you promote your stories so that people know more about them? Well, I have a website. I have Facebook and Twitter. I don't know how much of that really goes into much marketing unless you have followers. I don't like to push it on people, but I have bookmarks that I hand out, postcards that I mail out to libraries and independent bookstores. Also, I think I do some blog blasts, sort of get the newer releases, we get those out. That's generally about it. I'm a member of the BookTube community on YouTube. It's where we do book hauls. We show books we purchased. You see all the books behind me. This is not even, I don't even think half of my books. I love to read. And on Goodreads.com and YouTube for book hauls and stuff, it's a great way for me to find books that sound interesting. And people's reviews, when you read a review, I don't think you necessarily get a person's true feelings, but if you watch their review and hear them speak about a book, I think it's wonderful. And so YouTube is, I think that helps. You know, I really don't do a whole lot of marketing. I don't know. I think if it's a good book, the word spreads automatically, if that helps. And also recognition if it has won any awards. Actually, both Finkelton books to date have won 5 awards, and all that information is on my website. So I'm pretty excited. And Rapunzel just received the Children's Literary Classics seal of approval, so I was excited to learn about that as well. Okay, how is this world a better place because of your books? Well, I'd like to think it's a better place. You know, I mean, Finkelton, there's no electricity or running water or anything like that. I take that from, you know, back in the day when we didn't have televisions or internet or cars or anything like that, or, you know, an indoor bathroom. You know, I don't know. I think sometimes we just need to get in touch with our past and remember where we used to be as a country, and so I hope it's made it a better place. The Finkelton books are not dark, you know. I think it's fun, wholesome family values, and you know, my mother, when she was 8 years old, she had to help run her uncle's grocery store, and they turned a milk crate upside down because she was little and stood her on top of the milk crate, and she ran the cash register. So, you know, back in the day, that's just what they did. Families helped families, and families ran the business, and no matter how young they were, they took charge. So that's where my children, or the children in the Finkelton books, actually, they are very responsible, and they do like to play and enjoy and have fun, but they do work hard, and they help their family. So, you know, I like to hope that it would instill good values today. Okay, let's see, where am I at? When did you first realize you wanted to be a writer? Probably after I wrote 90 Miles to Freedom. That was actually the first book that I had written, even though it was not the first published. A small publishing company had picked that up. The Finkelton books, actually, The Magic of Finkelton actually came out first. That's when I realized that I wanted to. It was still scary, you know, to do that, because I feel like it's my thoughts, and everything goes out in this book, and people are judging my writing, and it, you know, it's scary. It's scary, and when the first reviews start coming through, I'm biting my nails, I'm holding my breath, but it's all good. It's part of it, you know. Okay, how long does it take you to write a book? Actually, thinking about the book, taking notes, and putting together a storyboard actually takes the longest. Writing the book itself from my notes and from my index cards doesn't take me that long. The actual writing process, that probably takes me about, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks maybe at the most. you know, maybe less, maybe only 2 weeks for the Finkelton books. That's me every single night, because I do work a full-time job. That's, you know, like 6 hours of writing a night. When I first start a book, that first chapter, it could take me 4 hours just to write that first chapter, and until I get into that, and then as I go along, it starts to go faster. But the actual writing process doesn't take very long. The thought process and then the editing takes long. But other than that, I mean, so yeah. Okay. Let me see. Do you use a pen name? Sorry. Do you use a pen name like Dr. Seuss did? Yes, I do. My pen name is Casey Hilton. I do have a real name, but we have a family business, so it's best to keep things separate for the business and the books. And we just made that decision, and we thought it was the best way to go. And yeah, so okay, that's my reason. Let's see. Do you work whenever you want or set up a writing schedule? I'm assuming you're talking about the writing. I can't do it whenever I want. I probably could. But I do work a full-time job. I run the family business. So the only time that I can write, and this is the God's honest truth, when everybody in the house is asleep and the dog has got to be asleep, because she has a squeaky toy, and she's squeaking all the time. It drives me crazy. But you know, she's loving her toys, so I have to wait until she calms down, and then I can write. So it's usually around 10:30, 11 o'clock at night when I start writing. And when I start writing, I become somewhat of a hermit. I'm not online very much. I'm dedicated to writing this, and I will write. There's been times I've stayed up till 5, 6 o'clock in the morning writing, and then I have to be at work and open up our business at 10 a.m. So we're talking maybe 4 or 5 hours sleep, but it's all good. And then in about 2 weeks, I'll usually crash, and I'm really tired from it all, and I'll sleep in one day on a Sunday or Saturday or something. But that's how I have to write, because I do work a full-time job, because we have chores we have to do too, so we got to take care of everything else. Do I have another job? Yes, yeah. I work a full-time job running the family business, like I was saying, and yeah, so I enjoy it, and I really think that continuing to work, well, I get more ideas. I meet other interesting people, and I get to hear interesting names, like Finkel. I actually went to school with a little girl in 2nd grade. Her last name was Finkel, and I loved that name. I love that name, and I could never get it out of my mind, and that's where the Finkel name came from. I always thought it was great. I like odd and unusual names, because they're not average everyday names like Mr. Jones or Mr. Smith, but Mr. Finkel, that's different. I like it a lot. And Lizzie is actually a name of my childhood friend. Her name was Elizabeth, but she preferred to be called Lizzie, and she read all the time, and that's where Lizzie came from. So yeah, okay, let's move on. What would you say is your interesting writing quirk? Okay, my writing quirk, I have to have, this is no lie, I have to have my Diet Coke and chocolate. It doesn't matter what kind of chocolate. I need chocolate in my Diet Coke to write. Yeah, so that's my writing quirk. Gotta have chocolate. Let's see. How do books get published? Well, there's several different ways actually. Big publishers publish them. You can self-publish books through TrakAxPC. Have someone convert your book, your manuscript, into an ebook, and for a certain file, and that can be uploaded to certain places online. And so there's different there's different ways for a book to get published. I hope I answered that question correctly. Where do you get your information or ideas for your books? Actually, most of the time they come from dreams. A little idea from a dream I remember or something like that. You know, I like Finkelton, for instance. I had gone to bed for some reason with hourglasses on my mind. And we were having a bad storm or bad weather or something was going on, and I'm like, geez, why can't the weather just be perfect? And and for some reason I had a dream about hourglasses, you know, controlling the weather. I mean, it was really odd. The dream that came from my thoughts before I went to sleep. So that's where I get a lot of my ideas. And then a new book that I'm writing, or I'm getting around to writing, is more from people I've met or people I know. Just some funny things that are going around. But yeah, that's where most of my ideas come from. And then again, talking to people, meeting people, paying attention to someone's conversation. You're not entirely listening to what they're saying, but maybe you hear something just kind of just interests you, and something like that. So that's where my ideas come from. Okay, so I'm 31 and a half minutes in here. I better move along. Okay, when, let me see. When did you write your first book and how old were you? Actually, wouldn't call it a book, but I did write a story when I was a little girl, and I'm not even sure what happened to it. You know, when you're in school and you write stories and stuff like that. I think I was in grade school. I might have been in 5th or 6th grade. We had visited my father's uncle's farm, actually. And it was in Dixie or Dixon, Illinois. I can't remember. I'd have to ask. But I thought it was the most amazing place. And it was a huge, huge farm. And it was a long driveway, long gravel drive. And again, you know, farms and Finkelton. So I think a lot of things do come from what I've experienced in dreams. So that's when I wrote, I think, my first story was when I was a little girl. So, but nothing ever came of that story. But, well, actually it did, because it was about the farm. So I sort of pulled that into Finkelton. So, let's see. What do you like to do when you're not writing? I love to read. Oh, and I love to watch movies. And we have grandchildren. We have 5 grandchildren. Yeah, that's what I like to do. In the summer, I like to be out in the pool or something like that. I do like to relax, but I enjoy reading. Oh, so much, because it's an escape. It's you can, like Lizzie says, or you know, in Finkelton, you can travel the world simply by reading in the safety of your own home. And I love to read, but yes, I do like to watch movies too. And yeah, so spend time with my family and stuff like that, and our dog. Let me see. And I probably should tell you, we have what you call a wiener dog, a Dachshund. So her name is Roxy, and I think I have a picture of her on our website. So she thinks she's huge, but she's actually like tiny. Okay, what does your family think of your writing, and do you have kids? Okay. I actually have 3 children. My husband has 3 children, so we have 6 children together, and they're all grown. Our oldest is 27, the youngest will be 19, and we have 5 grandchildren as of this video. And so yeah, Christmas time is crazy. And so are our cookouts, you know, when all the kids come, and their wives and their children. What does your family think of your writing? I think they like it. Yeah, yeah, I think they like it. I've not heard anything bad. Not that my mom would tell me she didn't like something, but my grandma would. My grandmother is 90 years old, and she would definitely tell me. And so far, she loves my books. She is a heavy, reader. The only time she watches television is to watch the news. And She loved the Finkelton series. She liked the wholesome values in it. Her favorite so far is my most recent book, which is My Name is Rapunzel. She said I outdid myself, so I'm hoping to do better on the next book too. Let's see. What was one of the most surprising things you learned in creating your books? What was one of the most surprising things I learned in creating the books? Actually, still to this day, that I could miss a typo. If I mean, I know there's so many things about creating books that do surprise me. The whole process of it all, editing and stuff like that, and proofreading. But it's funny that I could read what I've just written and everything seems to be perfectly fine. And then if a proofreader or someone else can come along and find a typo or find a mistake, and I'm like, huh, that wasn't there. But it is there, or it was there. It's just in your mind, as you're writing it, you see words that are not there, or you see that sentence that you've just written in your mind. So putting it down on paper, it is a little bit harder to do. And I have noticed that when I want to say explaining my books or doing something, or I'm trying to explain a new story, for me it's actually easier to write it down to explain it than it is to voice it. I do tend to stumble on my words sometimes, and when you're writing something with technology now, not a regular old typewriter, you can delete words and go on. But yeah, I think it's the typos and mistakes that is the most surprising, because I never thought, I know what I want to say and I know what I want to write, and why is it coming out differently? I'm just typing away, so. Okay, I'm at 36 minutes. How many books have you written? Which is your favorite and which is your least? I have written 4 books, actually. Both Finkelton books, 90 Miles to Freedom and My Name is Rapunzel. I love all my books. I do. But it's like the most recent book I love the most. As a writer or a photographer or an artist or someone who skateboards or skateboarding or writing anything or doing anything, you get better as you go along. You learn more stuff. You become more creative. You find your voice, your talent. And I think the more that you practice at something that you love and enjoy to do, even your job, you're going to get better as you go along. And so my favorite book now is My Name is Rapunzel. But I dare say, and I say dare say because I picked that up in England and it's in Finkelton, when I write Saving Finkelton, that is probably going to be my favorite book when I write that. Because my voice is actually coming out, I'm finding how I want to explain things, and I'm getting better as a writer. And my editor, I'm trying to make it to where she doesn't pull her hair out when she edits my books. So I've got to learn this craft and continue to learn. You can always learn, you can always do better. So I think the more practice, the better you get at anything. Okay, so, alright, let's go on to the next. Which was my least. I would have to say 90 Miles to Freedom, because there are some things that I just want to rewrite it. I want more description in it, if that makes any sense. And, excuse me. The Magic of Finkelton, it had gone through 2 editors. It had been re-edited last year, and I never released it. And actually it was March 1st. So March 1st this year, just a few days ago, I submitted the new ebook file, the newly edited version. It's got less words in it, however, the words will flow better. So that is a change that's been made to that one, and I don't know how I got off track. I think now I like it even more, if that makes any sense, because when I was a photographer, because I am a photographer, looking at some of my early photos, I could see where I could have done things better. So looking at The Magic of Finkelton, I seen where I could do things better, the writing style and stuff like that. So a few things, the storyline is still the same. It just flows better. For instance, you wouldn't say daddy and mommy. It actually flows out better when you say mommy and daddy, or mom and dad. It's just a certain way you say things. So hopefully people will approve of the new edit and stuff like that. So let's see. Do you have any suggestions to help me become a better writer? If so, what are they? Yes, actually read. Read, read, and read. And read outside of your comfort zone. Like, if you like to read fantasy and swords and stuff like that, it's great. Read a whole lot of fantasy. What about sci-fi? Go ahead and try to read a couple of those. What about mystery books or little romance books? Just read a whole variety of things. You'll pick up on things that other writers are doing and how they do things and how it comes across. So reading is your biggest tool to writing, and you see all the books behind me. I love it. So every writer is different. So that is your biggest tool is reading, and punctuation and grammar and how you would typically say things, and yeah. So okay, hope that helps you. I hope that helps you. Let me see. Do you hear from readers much, and what kinds of things do they say? Yes, I do, actually. I have received tons and tons of emails, and I've done a few videos like this, not necessarily a Q&A, for a few schools. Poston Hill Elementary School was one in New York. Tons of parents contact me for their children, and I do have a lot of younger children, young adults, that contact me as well and say how much they love the books. Sometimes they'll be on my Facebook page, or they'll leave a comment on my website under the book or something, and tell me how much they love it, and I respond to every one of them. I try to respond that day. Sometimes it's the next day. It depends when I check my email, because again, I do work, but I do respond to everyone, and I have fans everywhere. In England, the UK, Scotland. Those are some of my biggest fans aside from the United States, and it's fun, actually, and yeah. Okay, what audience do you enjoy writing for the most? Children, actually, children and young adults. That's so far that's what I enjoy writing the most, and I am, my name is Rapunzel, as young adult, but also adults read young adult books as well. I enjoy them myself. My next book, I think, is going to be more adult, contemporary, funny book. I'm going to try that and then come back to young adult, and obviously children, the Finkelton series. So I do enjoy writing for children. Let me see. What do you think makes a good story? Intrigue, interest, captivating the audience, and just and like some people say, a book, oh, it's boring. I would stick with it, because sometimes you need to know a little bit of backstory, and sometimes it takes a while to explain that backstory. If you pick up some adult books, I mean, they're massive. Those writers they're drawing you in. They want you to know more, and I enjoy reading more description. And so, yeah, I think knowing more description, I really like that about a book, and just the intrigue and just keeping me pulled in. That's what I enjoy. What's what I think makes a good story, and I like humor as well. At what point did you start to label yourself as a writer or an author? Probably after I wrote both Finkelton books. That's probably when I would portray myself as that. I just consider myself a writer. I think I'm an author when I'm speaking to a class or doing a book signing or something like that. But for the most part, I think I'm a writer. Yeah, okay. What's the earliest memory you have of writing a story? I think I said that earlier. That I think I was in like 5th or 6th grade when I wrote that story about being on a farm in Dixon, Illinois. I think it was Dixon. That was the earliest memory of writing a story. What is your least favorite part of the writing process? Oh, gosh. The least favorite part is, there's probably a few of them, actually. Making sure my scenes are all going together. But the least favorite part would have to be the editing process. You know, that's where changes are going to be made with your editor, like major changes. What if there's plot holes or something that you forgot, and like you can't leave things dangling in the air? That's the hardest part, I think, in getting through that, because sometimes you have to rewrite scenes or change some things about, or delete things. Actually, both Finkelton books, I think 2,000 to 3,000 words were removed from those books, because they were unnecessary, or maybe they were repeated in some way that didn't need to be there. And when I was writing them, I was just having a thought process, and I was reiterating certain facts. And as an editor, and that's what an editor is for, they find these things. That's what they're good at. They point this out, and they're not needed because they've already been said. And it's interesting. It's an interesting process, but I think that's the hardest process as well. And let's see. Do you use the whole writing process from brainstorming to revising? Yes, I do. I probably do more than that. On my storyboard, I like the stick notes when I start that. I would have each character a certain color. Like, let's use Finkelton, for example. Like Jack, I'd probably use a stick note for him. If he's going to come into a scene, his would be blue. Lizzie's would be pink. Maybe Robert's would be green. And I could look at it as a whole on my storyboard, and I would see how many times, how many times do I see blue? That's how many times I'm going to see Jack in the book. And Robert the same way, in green, or Lizzie in pink, and stuff like that. So I can see, do I need more of the mom and dad, to come into play, or, other characters. So I kind of visualize it as well on the storyboard, and then after I have everything right and I'm moving things around or adding things, then I transfer it over. But in the revising, the revising part, I do have the stories. I transfer them to the 4x6 notes cards. However, I don't always stick to them. Sometimes my characters take off on their own, and they want to go do this. It's hard to explain, but it's like the little petty bickering that Robert and Lizzie had with the bucket when they were scrubbing the floor in Return to Finkelton. That was not in my notes. That scene did not happen. I do not have that wrote down anywhere except for the manuscript itself. While I was writing the scene, that happened by itself. So sometimes my characters, they take over, if that makes any sense. And so, yeah. I hope I answered that one good enough. Alright, I'm at 47 minutes. I'm trying to do this fast. We've got quite a few more to go, so I'm going to make some of these really quick if you don't mind. How has writing changed your life? It actually has opened me up to a different world that I wasn't used to before. I listen more now. Sometimes when I'm on the phone with someone, just a friend or a family member, I have a pen in my hand and a piece of paper somewhere. Maybe they said a certain word that I don't want to forget, or a name that popped out and I like the name, or just a certain sentence. So that's changed me in that way. And the contacts with people, obviously I don't know you guys, but hey, it's great to be in your classroom. It's changed my life in that way as well. It's kept me busy with social media that I wasn't on Facebook or anything like that beforehand, but I am now. Do you have pets? Yes, we have one, and her name is Roxy, and she's a wiener dog. She's a mini Dachshund, and she's about 11 pounds. Yeah. What technology do you use for writing? I use my laptop. I use Word, and I'm trying to learn another program called Scrivener. A lot of writers use it. I just need to sit down one day and really learn it, and I'm hoping I can use it. My editor uses that as well, and she likes it. As a child, what did you want to do when you grew up? Actually, I wanted to do several things. I'm a girl, but I wanted to be a mechanic. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be an architect. But back in the day when I grew up, girls were supposed to do girl jobs, and boys were supposed to do boy jobs, and I wanted to do all the boy jobs. And my dad said, no, you're supposed to pick a girl job. So I'm like, okay, I'll be a nurse or something like that. But I, I thought I could do those jobs also. And so yeah, I had a wide variety of things I wanted to do when I grew up. And I'm also a master barber. And back in the day, barbers were only men. But I am a master barber, so, and I do enjoy cutting hair. That's not our family business, by the way. As a child, okay, we already did that. Which period of life do you find yourself writing about most often? Which period of life? I'm gonna say era of life. I do like to write more in the past, and you'll see that in the Finkelton series, and you'll see that in My Name is Rapunzel. I still love some contemporary. I just don't like drama. Um, so I like to write stuff in the past, back in the day. That's my favorite. Do you write your story in sequence, or use a pre-writing organizer? That's where I use that board, my storyboard, and my scenes come in my head, different notes, and I'll move them around and put things where they need to be. That's how I do things. And then when I actually sit down and write, I go from my note cards and then write in order, that way. But generally, the scenes are written out of order, if that makes any sense. Let me see. Which phrase in a book are you most proud of? I'd have to grab my book out. I'll try to come back to that one. Let me mark this one. If I have time, I'll come back to that one. Did you turn to other authors for inspiration or encouragement during the writing process? No, not really. No, I didn't. I was bouncing ideas off my husband and family members. Other writers, no. I think I was just more intrigued with, word spacing, or sentence spacing, what font size I was supposed to use, and certain things like that. I think that was all I was, from other authors that I needed to get information for. But yeah, when I start writing a book, I'll bounce ideas off people, but then when I'm actually writing it, nobody knows what's going on. Like I said, I become a hermit. I don't tell anybody. My husband doesn't even know majority of that book until I'm finished, and then he finally reads it. Let me see. We have to answer a lot of questions when reading a story about things like author's purpose, supporting evidence, and make inferences and make differences. Do you consider any of these things while you're writing, or do they just show up as a result of the plot? Yes, there is a purpose. I have an idea of purposes when I'm writing books, but most of the time they're showing up in the plot when I'm writing them, supporting evidence or what you can take away from the story. And if those things don't happen, then I need to find, after I've written the first draft, then I need to find a place to put them in. Yeah, that's more of that storyboard process that I use, and that's basically my first draft. So yeah, yeah, that's the best way I can explain that one. I'm sorry. Do you consider yourself to have a style, and how would you describe it? A style, I think I have developed my style, my writing style, a little bit more over the past few years. I like funny things. I like there to be that main story, but I still like those funny moments, and you'll find those in most of my books. So I love to laugh and I love to talk. So yeah. Have you read anything that made you think differently about something? Yes, The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. More recently, and that's just off the top of my head. That one, it actually opened my eyes to some things like cancer and stuff like that and what people go through. So, and it's a very good book. It's a young adult book. I really enjoyed it. Do you make a lot of money? What do you consider a lot of money? Well, I make more money now than I did before Rapunzel. Do you make a lot of money? I love that question. Thank you. I'm not rich. I'm not J.K. Rowling. I'm not Stephanie Meyer. But I'm pleased with the amount of money I do make. How's that? And I saved that money. I put it in a savings account, and that's where it stays. When you revised your story, did you edit anything out or completely rework an idea? There has been several things that have been edited out, and there have been several things that weren't put back in. And um, I don't think I reworked the idea anything like that, but several things were removed, and it's heartbreaking when I have to remove certain things. But I understand from the editor's point of view, if it didn't move the story forward, then it needed to be removed. There was no point having it in the book. Have you written anything that matched your original plan by the time it was published? Yes, actually. The Finkelton books and 90 Miles to Freedom, I think those were all spot on, basically. My Name is Rapunzel. Certain things, we basically moved that entire book around. The chapters and how she perceived her past and how that story was going to be told. So that was different. It was interesting. At first I wasn't sure about it, but then yeah, it grew on me, and it turned out to be the best thing for that book. If you could make a law for everyone to read one book, what would it be? Okay, I know you're too young for this book, but I think it should be a law that all high school students should read the book called The Help by Catherine Stockett. I even said that in my book review on Goodreads, that I think it should be made mandatory. Wonderful story, and so when you're in high school and you are able to read The Help, I think it's an adult book, so maybe when you're a little bit older than that, ask your teacher. She probably has read The Help by Catherine Stockett. It's a very, very good book. Very good book. Let's see. What are some strategies you use to overcome writer's block? Time limits. Strategies. I don't have writer's block. I've never had writer's block. I have tons of ideas that come to my mind. They don't stop. It's constant for me. I'm always saying, what if this, what if that? Time limits. It's okay, well, can I work tomorrow on 2 hours of sleep? You know, basically, that's how I look at things. And I'll go a few weeks and run on 4 and 5 hours of sleep a day, and still work and be fine. But that's just my choice. And then I just know after I'm done, then I'll get the sleep I need. So, and I might be skipping some of these questions. I do apologize. How much reading do you do compared to the time you spend writing? I read more than I actually write. Like I said before, that is the tool of the trade. So that's important. To me, the actual writing process doesn't take that long. To me, the draft and the storyboard and developing the idea takes longer. Would you want your books to become movies? Well, of course I'd love my books to become movies. So if any of you out there, anyone in this classroom is going to be a movie producer one day, don't forget my books. And I'll see you in Hollywood. But yes, the Finkelton books, I actually see them as a mix between Hugo and Nanny McPhee, if that makes any sense. The feel of Hugo. And I know I'm at 58 minutes. Are you working on a new novel now? Yes, I am. Working, meaning I'm not writing. The ideas are there, and I'm trying to put together a draft, and it is that humorous adult contemporary novel that I'm working on. Where are you from? I'm from Aurora, Illinois, actually. I grew up there, just outside of Chicago. So, let me see. How much of the stories you write are from real life events? So many things in my stories come from real life events. Ideas, things that my children have done, things that my husband has said, just funny things that surround me, my friends and family. Those things come from real life events, like Bath, England. I went there. I visited that town. So that's what I experienced. So do you see writing as a career? I could see writing as a career, yes, easily, but I help run the family business, so, and that is very important, so I could see doing both, actually. How much research do you do when writing a story, and does it include traveling? I do a lot of research on certain things. And does it include traveling? I think my stories come from when I travel, and then I've already been there. And if I need to do more information, I will have to do the research online, or get some books on that, or go to the library, or stuff like that. Uh, Research by writing a story. Yeah, I mean, there's so many things out there now that you can get your hands on. You know, the library, Google. That's great. So yeah, but I don't specifically go somewhere, you know, like visit a place. It's usually that I've already been there. What have you learned from writing books? Better grammar and punctuation. So pay attention to your English teacher. Seriously. What is your favorite genre to read and to write? To write, I think I've gone over that. To read would be, I love young adult, and I love historical romance. The historical part. Historical fiction, should I say, because I read a lot of adult books, historical fiction. I love history. I didn't like it as much when I was in school, but I do love it now because there's so many interesting things. What would you title a book that you told the story? What would you title a book that told the story of your life? Well, let me see. Don't use the smoke alarm for an oven timer. There's a good title. What questions have you always wanted to be asked in an interview, and how would you answer it? Okay. What's your dream job? What's my dream job? I think it would be great to work at Disney World. Seriously, I think it would be awesome. Have you read those books? Disney, let me see, Disney After Dark, Kingdom Keepers. I think it's kind of scary, but it's a middle grade book. I think it would be cool to work with the Imagineers, is what they call them there, and see what goes on behind the scenes. I think that would be my dream job. I think that would be awesome. And if you had a superpower, which one would it be? I think I would like to be able to time travel. That would be my superpower. And also, what is my favorite food? I tell everyone it is pizza. Okay, guys, thanks so much for allowing me into your classroom, and it's been a few minutes over an hour, and I do apologize. And thanks again for having me, and I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you've learned some, and if you have any questions, please give them to your teacher, and she'll email me, and I will email her back the answers. How's that? And I think I only skipped a few questions in here, but all right, guys, you have a great week, and I hope you've learned something. All right, thanks again. Bye.